Oh hey, I didn't see you there. Hey guys, Colin the Big Yoshi here, and today we're going to be talking about the second to last movie of Phase 3, Avengers Endgame. Probably the most anticipated movie of the entire MCU. And people just cannot decide if it's better than Infinity War or worse. So the story of this movie is actually the most emotional story out of any MCU film. They really get crazy with all of the emotions. The main premise is that, after Infinity War happened and Thanos' snap happened, half of all life in the universe got erased, and families got separated, and friends got separated, and the whole universe was just, thrown off balance. But for Thanos, it was perfectly balanced, you know what I mean? And then the Avengers, immediately after getting Tony back from flying through space, they go and fight Thanos once again, but then they realize that the stones are not there, because Thanos destroyed them. And then 5 years later, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, he comes to the Avengers base and suggests that maybe they can go back in time through the quantum realm to get back the Infinity Stone. So that's their plan. So I think that my favorite thing about this movie is all the fan service. This movie is a 10-year, almost 11-year, I believe, payoff to this wonderful franchise. And I don't know why people are saying it's this payoff for all of it, because I guess it is, but it's still not the last movie that they're ever gonna make. So, but everybody's treating it like the last movie, and I'm not sure why. Just seeing all of these characters together is just a treat, just like Infinity War. I love having the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers and Ant-Man and Doctor Strange all together. The fan service goes even beyond all the characters. The places that they go back to when they time travel, they go back to the Battle of New York, one of the MCU's best fight scenes. They go back to Asgard from Thor the Dark World. They go back to Morag from the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. And they go back to Vormir from Infinity War. And just seeing all the characters in these places, seeing Professor Hulk going up to the Ancient One and arguing about the Time Stone, it's just great. And there's these little moments that have just packed the fan service on even more. At one point in the beginning of the movie, Tony makes a suit for Pepper, but Pepper doesn't wear it until the last fight scene where she puts it on and becomes Rescue, and it's great. And then there's Captain America lifting up Thor's hammer, just like in Age of Ultron. And just seeing, once again, just every character together, it's so great. I literally cannot think of a movie that made me more happy than in the final scene. Not the final scene, the final fight scene in this movie. I've gone to see this movie 4 times now, and this final fight scene has given me goosebumps every single time I've watched it. I love this scene so much. And I think it's the best fight scene in the entire MCU. Just seeing Spider-Man holding on to the Iron Gauntlet while riding on the back of a Pegasus that Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok is riding, that I just can't believe it's a sentence. It's beautiful. I love this movie. This movie is like a reward for seeing all of the other movies in this franchise, for dedicating all of the time to getting invested in these characters. Also, it feels like every single character has improved in this movie. Tony Stark, kind of the main character of the entire MCU. He goes from, in his home movie, he goes from being this arrogant, womanizing asshole to this guy who, in Endgame, he has a family. He is married to Pepper. He has a kid, and that he says that this is his second chance, and he doesn't want to lose it. And then when Tony dies in the end, it's just, I mean, you feel like, it's not like you pity him, because it's like he still got 5 years, and they were the best 5 years of his life with his daughter, but you still feel for him, obviously. And it's probably the saddest death in the entire MCU. I'll admit, I teared up. Then we have Steve Rogers, and he is just great as well, because this whole time we've been feeling bad for him because he can't go back to see all of his friends in the 1940s, and he can't go out with the woman that he loved, Peggy Carter. And in this movie, he gets his chance, and he goes all the way back in time, and he experiences what life is like, and you just feel really happy for him. And he even hands over the shield to Sam Wilson. Then we have Thor, and a lot of people don't really like Thor in this. Like, he's really split. I've never seen something so split, except like Super Mario Sunshine. Yeah, Fat Thor, he makes for some really funny moments, and I actually don't think he's that bad, because it makes sense. You go from this serious guy in Thor 1, he becomes worthy of the hammer, he gets all jokey in the Avengers, he kind of goes back to being serious in Dark World, gets funny again in Age of Ultron. He's really funny in Ragnarok because he's been hanging out with all of the jokesters. Then in Infinity War, he's all serious again because he's lost everybody. And then in Endgame, he's depressed because he thinks it was all his fault that everybody else died. And he realizes that he's lost everybody. He can't even say the name Thanos without breaking down. And he can't even mention his mom and dad without him breaking down. And so it really makes sense that he would let himself go after all of those years. And you really feel for him as well. He gets this redemptive thing later in the film where he goes back to Asgard in 2013, and he gets to talk to his mom again, and she tells him, don't try to be the person that you're supposed to be, just go and try to be who you are. And it's a really good arc for him. And he realizes that he's still worthy even after all of those years. Then we have Bruce Banner. He is pretty good in this movie because I know everybody's not too crazy about the Professor Hulk thing, but I think it kind of makes sense. Like, he got his ass kicked as Banner, he got his ass kicked as Hulk, so combine the two. It makes sense, and I was thinking there's no way that they could pull that off, but I don't know, they pulled it off. He's pretty funny. The way that they revealed him, it's pretty great. After getting beat by Thanos, he gets a redemptive arc because he gets to snap the Iron Gauntlet, and he's the one that brings everybody back. So he made the sacrifice. Then we have Black Widow, and she was really improved in this movie. She was already pretty good, but in this movie, she's great because you start to hear a lot more of her backstory, hinting at the new movie that's most likely going to come in Phase 4. And in this movie, you get to see how emotionally fragile she is because the Avengers are the only family that she's had, and seeing that everybody's disappeared, it makes her break down, and you have this scene of her just all alone. What happens when nobody's looking and she's actually really emotionally fragile and stuff. And it ends with her throwing herself off the cliff for Hawkeye, and it's a really nice way to cap off her story. Then we have Hawkeye, and he is great in this film because we get to see how much fun he's having retired with his family, But then we get the spine-chilling beginning of the movie where all his family disappears and he gets devastated by it so much that he turns into a killer and goes around the world murdering mob bosses and stuff. It's stuff like that that makes me think maybe this movie should have been rated R, because he slits someone's throat. And in the end he gets his wish again, where he gets to have his family again, so that's always nice. That's all the main Avengers, but then let's talk about the other characters. Rhodey is in this movie as one of the guys that didn't get dusted, and he doesn't really get expanded upon, but he does have like some pretty funny lines in this movie, which is kind of weird. He actually gets a bit of a nice moment with Nebula as well, where Nebula shows that her hand is like robotic now, and she's like, I wasn't always like this, and he's like, yeah, me neither, but we gotta live with what we've got, because you know his back is broken. So they actually gave him some really nice lines and stuff. He's pretty funny in this movie, so I'll give him that. Then we have Nebula, and she's really good in this movie. When I saw Infinity War, I was like, why was one of the people that didn't get dusted Nebula? That just feels random. But in this movie, she is pretty good. She's definitely very improved. You can tell that she actually does like her father, but at the same time she resents him, and so she doesn't even care that much when he dies. And you can tell how much she misses Gamora, and you just feel for her. Then we have Rocket, and he doesn't really do much in this movie. He's a lot better in the Guardians movies. In this one, he just says some funny lines, and that's really it. He doesn't do much. Then we have Ant-Man, and Ant-Man's one of my favorite heroes in the MCU. So I was really happy that he was actually going to be in Endgame, because I was disappointed when he wasn't in Infinity War. But in Endgame, he actually serves he's pretty important in it, because he's the one who pretty much saves everybody. Or I guess you could say it's the Rat. I wasn't crazy about the Rat scrambling across the buttons, and that's what gets him out. I found that kind of overly convenient. But I'm not too upset about it, because the movie would be way longer if they had to have some other way to get him out. And it's already long enough. And you can tell how overjoyed Scott is to know that Cassie is still alive. But it also makes him miss his friends even more. And you really feel for him as well. You pretty much feel for everybody in this movie. Then you have Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel is just there. I get why they needed her in the story, but they set her up as this big, important part of Endgame. Like, well, you know, they couldn't beat Thanos without her, but she really doesn't do anything in this movie. She goes and saves Tony and Nebula from space. That makes sense. But then she's not there for the rest of the movie. Also, she gets this terrible haircut. I mean, it's kind of grown on me the more I've seen the movie, but I still don't really like it. Yeah, it's a side thing. She appears in the final battle, and she's so... I think the reason that she wasn't in this more is because she's so overpowered that if she was in the movie more, then the movie would have been like all the challenges that they needed to overcome would have been a lot easier. So it makes sense that she wasn't in it a lot. And then I could also talk about all the other characters that were in the movie, but most of them just get like cameos. They're not cameos, but they just mostly show up in the final battle, like, you know, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord. They just show up in the final battle and they just fight. They don't really do anything, but it's still really cool to see them all there. Although I guess I could talk about Sam a little bit. So Sam's going to be the new Captain America. I wonder how that's going to go. I'm interested to see. I thought Falcon did some really cool stuff in this movie. Well, like, he wasn't in it a lot, but he was the first person that came... Well, no. he was the first person that Cap realized would be coming back, and he was kind of cool in the battle. He did this cool thing where he stabbed his wings into a guy. That was pretty brutal, but cool. So yeah, I'm excited to see how he's going to be the new Captain America in his TV show. I'm pretty sure he's getting a TV show. And also, I like the little thing that how Bucky knew that Steve was going to go get a life, going to go enjoy life on his own. I think that was pretty cool that he actually automatically knew. Also, I like that Howard Stark shows up in this movie in one of the time travel sequences when they go back to get the Tesseract, because it really just reinforces Tony's character arc. He's like, I thought my dad was tough on me, but now thinking about it, he was a nice guy. I wasn't thinking about it enough, and it just really makes his arc even better. And it's just crazy how many heroes were in this movie. Like, even they got Michelle Pfeiffer and Samuel L. Jackson, and they got so many actors just to go to the funeral for Tony. I thought that was crazy. I thought it was crazy how they added in Harley from Iron Man 3 as well, just grown up. Now that was really cool, actually. I didn't even know who it was supposed to be at first. So that was a really nice surprise. Now, oh yeah, and I guess the last character that we have is Thanos. And Thanos isn't very interesting in this movie. But you know, it makes sense, because he's just the villain in this movie, whereas you could see his motivations more in Infinity War. So he's not as good, but I still like him in this movie. And he definitely got what he deserved. And you know, you still feel for him as he dies, but in the end, you know, he's still a bad guy. It's still a good thing that he died. But you still feel for him because he truly believes what he was doing was right. And something else I really like about this movie is that it has a dark tone in like the first half. And I really like that about this movie because it gives it its own unique identity once again. And it just really makes you think, like, what if a real event happened? Like, what if something like this really happened? It gets me thinking, at least. And here's a few last things, I guess. I really like how the time travel follows its own rules, and it makes sense most of the time. Like, just don't think about it too hard, and you should be fine. And also, the ending of this movie is fantastic for every single character. So, I also, like, this movie should have been the end of Phase 3, but for some reason, Far From Home is still in Phase 3. Which is weird, but whatever, I'll accept it. So, I'm still excited for that movie. And it also just makes me, the ending for every character also just makes me want to see a sequel in Phase 4 for all of them. I want Guardians 3 so that they can keep looking for Gamora. And so I can also see Thor in the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's gonna be great. I want another Ant-Man movie. Maybe Cassie can help them out now that she's all grown up. I still feel like I would want a Hawkeye movie along with the Black Widow movie. Maybe they could go along with each other. Like, maybe it could be in one movie, both of them. It could be like both of their origin stories or something. That'd be kind of cool. They could interweave them together. I think they could do that. They're good at that. And also I want Doctor Strange 2, which is already happening. Black Panther 2 is happening. They're all going to be great. And luckily Far From Home is happening, so we know what happens to him and Ned and the rest of their classmates. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to see that movie. I'm seeing it tomorrow. And also as a bonus, I went to see the re-released version of Endgame. It's my 4th time going to see the movie, once again. So I got to see all the new stuff. And I mean, it was kind of a cash grab, but I don't really care that much. The the stuff that we got to see was still pretty cool. Like, I liked how we got to see a Stan Lee tribute. It's just cool because we got to see a bunch of conversations between him and the actors. That was pretty cool. And he talked about how, like, surprised that he was at how the movies have become a massive global phenomenon. And he just starts like giving thanks to all of us and stuff. He was a great guy. We all miss him. And then we get an unfinished scene that would have been in the movie, but they said that they really liked it, but they had to cut it for time purposes because the movie was already too long. It was just a scene introducing Professor Hulk, saving people from a burning building, and then being like, him getting a phone call to meet them at the diner. I'm actually glad that scene wasn't in the movie because it would have ruined the surprise of Professor Hulk. The way that they introduced him in the movie was fantastic because it's just like so unexpected. It's like they cut to a diner, they cut to Ant-Man going, I'm so confused, and then just him staring at Professor Hulk. That was the perfect way to introduce him as a joke. So I wouldn't have it any other way. And also, everybody's been complaining about how that scene is unfinished, but it's not really that big of a deal. It was a deleted scene. Why would they go and finish it? And then there was a scene from Far From Home, which was pretty cool. I'm so excited for that movie. I'm definitely more excited for that movie now because of it. I didn't even know what I was watching at first. I just saw Maria Hill and Nick Fury getting out of a car. But then when they said that the typhoon had eyes, I was like, oh, this is Far From Home, let's go. And we got to see Mysterio a little bit. So I'm excited to see that tomorrow now that I know some more stuff about it. More stuff than my family because my family didn't go see the re-release with me, it was just me. So yeah, I massively enjoyed Avengers Endgame. It was a fantastic movie. And I don't know if it's better than Infinity War, but it definitely gave me like more hype than Infinity War. So I think that if I was going to give this movie a score, I would give it a 5 out of 5. I just don't know if it's as good as Infinity War. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this review, then maybe leave a like and subscribe. That'd be pretty cool. And tomorrow we're moving on to the last movie that is currently out, and the last movie of Phase 3, Spider-Man: Far From Home. See you then.